And the rest of you, page 882 in your Red Pew Bible, please stand for the very short passage today. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. You may be seated. Now, before we jump into today, there was something that was on my heart this morning. I'm actually going to go back, if you happen to still have your Pew Bible open, I'm going to go back to page 880. A little bit before, one of my old mentors used to say, it's always good when you're reading a passage, go a little bit before, read a little bit before, read a little bit after. I'm going to go a little bit more before. But chapter 18, the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. And there's something that we need to lock into our brain, this understanding. And so I'm going to read a few verses here. It says, after Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with the police from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. And so an important thing to realize, that word detachment, in the original language, that is spiron, which means 1/10 of a legion. And so when John wrote that Judas and the Pharisees and the high priests, they brought a company of soldiers. That's somewhere between 400 and 600 soldiers that they brought in the middle of the night to arrest Jesus. And these aren't just, rent-a-cops. Sorry if no offense intended whatsoever. These are battle-hardened Roman centurions. These are Roman soldiers. So they brought 400 to 600 Roman soldiers to arrest Jesus. Now pay attention to what happens. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Who are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they stepped back and fell to the ground. So think, Rome had basically conquered almost the entire civilization of humanity. And the chiefs and the Pharisees and the high priests brought 400 to 600 battle-hardened Roman soldiers to arrest Jesus. And all Jesus, 3 words, "I am he," and they all, swords, armor. That is the power of this man that we are talking about. That is the power of Jesus in all that he was up to. And we've talked, this slide has been up every Sunday of this Easter. Crucifixion is the most cruel and horrifying punishment. It's not meant just to kill somebody, it's meant to absolutely humiliate them. So the one who simply stepped forward, probably just wearing a white robe and sandals, he didn't have armor or any weapon whatsoever. Amongst all of his people that were with him, they had one sword. And there are 400 to 600 battle-hardened Roman soldiers, plus it said, and the police. So who knows how many people were there? But Jesus stepped forward and said, "I am he," and they all stepped back and went down to the ground. That's the power in the man who chose this. That's an incredible thing. And it's important as we enter into, as I said earlier, the most confusing week, I believe, in the Christian calendar. We celebrate triumphantly, we march around waving palms and celebrating the triumphal entry, and in a matter of a couple days, we have brutal torture and humiliation. Now, this is also the Sunday that when I first became a pastor, after the first couple years, my family used to tease me after Palm Sunday because I always talk about the curtain in the temple. And apparently, in the first couple years when I was talking about the curtain in the temple, I made a big deal about how thick it was. And so we joke that this is Thick Curtain Sunday because my family, after a service, they're always like, Dad, how thick was the curtain? It was really thick. It's a thick curtain. It's not just it's a thick curtain. How thick was it? It was so thick. Anyway. So this is Thick Curtain Sunday. I sent a text to the whole family this morning. Just a reminder, it's Thick Curtain Sunday. But to understand the power in the one that Roman soldiers feared, and he chose this. And that's our reminder that the Bible was not just given to fill our heads. It's not just for our information, but it's meant to transform our hearts and our lives. It's meant to make us brand new. It's meant to redeem us. This redemption, Easter. God deemed us good at the beginning, and he is constantly redeeming you good. And that's what this week is all about. This is our opportunity for redemption. Jesus made all things new because of this week. And so today we talk about Jesus' final words from the cross. So let's start with the Luke 23 that Mark read for us. It was about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, for the sun stopped shining. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Darkness is a symbol of God's judgment. We also talked that I read it again, astronomers say it is literally impossible to have an eclipse during the Passover. I stopped reading at that because I don't get the rest of it, but I read it multiple times. It is impossible that there would be an eclipse during the Passover. Again, I don't know why. I'm not an astronomer. I stopped, but I read it multiple times. And so it's not a coincidence. Oh, that's crazy that, there just so happened to be an eclipse during. No. We, as followers of Jesus, know this was not just symbolic, but this was an act of God, and it's written in history that the sun seemingly disappeared for a few hours on one afternoon from noon to 3. This is legendary. This is not a coincidence. This is a complete and total act of God. Complete and total darkness for those 3 hours. And then as soon as 3 o'clock in the afternoon happened, the curtain in the temple. Okay, so now to explain the temple. In the center of the temple was the Holy of Holies. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was. And there was a thick curtain. How thick was it? It was really thick. It was like, old school yellow page phone book. And I grew up in Minneapolis, so I don't know what your yellow pages looked like here. Maybe it was only this big. But the yellow pages where I grew up was like thick. It's like real thick. It's not like a shower curtain kind of curtain. So if a shower curtain was torn in two, you'd be like, oh, that's weird. But this is a 30-foot high phone book that got ripped in two from top to bottom as soon as the sun reappeared at 3. So in the center of the temple was the Holy of Holies, and then right outside of that was an area for the priests. And so one time, one day, once a year, one special priest got to go into the Holy of Holies, into the presence of God. They tied a rope around his ankle, just in case when the presence of God appeared, he died, they could drag him out, because you couldn't pass that thick curtain unless you were the one of that year. And so imagine that, okay, it's a little daunting thing. Tie this rope around my ankle in case I die so you can drag out my lifeless body. Otherwise, I'm going to sit in the Holy of Holies until next year. And somebody, anyway, my brain goes weird places. So there was a special place where the presence of God existed, and one time per year, one person could go in. The presence of God was contained within that Holy of Holies, and that curtain was the entry point. That really thick curtain was that entryway. And the moment, if we could triple screen this, the moment Jesus died was the moment the sun came back, was the moment this 30-foot high phone book tore from top to bottom, all simultaneously. It's a pretty powerful coincidence. Not to mention the fact, again, did I mention how thick that curtain is? That thing's not just going to deteriorate and fall apart on its own from top to bottom in a moment. This was an act of violent tearing. This was an incredibly violent act. Imagine the power of God was contained, or the presence of God was contained within this space. And in the original language, the curtain was torn, it's a passive voice was torn, meaning it was a divine passive. So that means the way that it is written, the curtain was torn means God tore the curtain. Jesus died as the Son appeared, and then God ripped that curtain from top to bottom. Just imagine the picture of God thundering out of the Holy of Holies, to be able to reach out to all people. So now you didn't have to be the special one individual with the rope tied around your ankle to enter into the presence of God. Now the presence of God just came tearing out of that Holy of Holies into everybody's presence. I have goosebumps on my head thinking about that moment of the power of the Almighty Creator of the universe bursting through that. The moment Jesus died, the sun pops back out and the power of God comes thundering out of that space, so that the power of God, the presence of God, the Spirit of God is available to everybody at all times. You don't have to be special. You don't have to go through any special ceremony whatsoever to make sure you're clean enough to enter into the presence of God, because the presence of God is all around us all the time. It's an incredible thing. Incredible enough to rip this really thick curtain. There's no need for separation. There's no need for a hierarchy of who are the special ones. There's redemption. The tearing of that curtain represented direct access to God. We no longer need to go through a priest to talk to God. We, as regular schlubs, get to be on our knees and enter into the presence of God and have the presence of God overwhelm us with who He is. Picture God just thundering out of that space, making Himself available. The Spirit of God was unleashed into the world. So Jesus enduring the darkness and enduring all sin for all time, all sin in the past, all sin in the future, in those 3 hours, Jesus bore all of it on the cross. In the pitch black darkness representing the absence of God, Jesus carried all of that sin for those 3 hours. He opened our path to God. Because sin is what separates us from God. It's one of the reasons, there's lots of reasons, and I'm, some true, really great theologian would probably, pick out all of my errors. But one reason why God was contained within that Holy of Holies was because God and sin cannot mix. And so if a priest entered into that Holy of Holies and died, they probably were like, oh yeah, he was not cleansed. He had something going on that we didn't know about. But now, see, I'm sinful. Had I tried entering into the Holy of Holies, I would have dropped dead in an instant because I am sinful. But what Jesus did on the cross, He cleansed us of all unrighteousness, enabling us to exist at all times in the presence of God. He conquered sin. And so now we go to this John 19. Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. It is finished. What is it? As he was there for 3 hours, bearing the weight of all the sin for all humanity for all time, after those 3 hours, it's like the masterpiece is done. Imagine it's Michelangelo, right? Painted the Sistine Chapel. Sometimes I get that wrong. I give credit to the wrong guy. But imagine you're painting the Sistine Chapel and the final brush stroke. You step back, it's finished. Okay, maybe apply it more to us. You're an accountant. Last tax return of the season. Finished. Or you're a farmer and it's been a brutal harvest and you're down to your last row. Do you pay homage to that last row, or do you just like, yeah, whatever? But when I imagine when you finish, you're like, yes, done. Finished. It is finished. Jesus is there and he says he's not there on the cross saying, finally, I'm done dealing with these schlubs. Finally, no more pain. I'm done suffering. I finally get to breathe my... No, up to this point, Jesus has not thought of himself once. If we go back, we didn't get to all the words, but the very first thing that Jesus said, Father, forgive them. He gets put up on the cross. His first thing is, God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. As he's the one suffering, he's forgiving them. Second thing, to the sinner hanging next to him, he says, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus had every right to be more angry than those people who deserved to be there according to the law. Everything Jesus was doing was he was hung because of fabricated lies. But he's saying to the one, I got you. While he's hanging there, he looks down, he sees his mom. He sees one of the disciples standing next to her, and he says, Mary, behold your son. And in that moment, we didn't talk about that one, but in that moment, Jesus, as he's hanging on the cross, he's reminding us to care for each other. Church family, we are meant to care for each other. As Jesus was hanging there suffering, he's reminding us we need to identify the vulnerable people around us within our church family and outside of our church family, and we are called to care. He's hanging from the cross and he's reminding us to care for each other. To God and everyone present, this is one we talked about a couple weeks ago. My God, why have you forsaken me? There, now he's complaining. No, but remember, those were the first words. Like Amazing Grace of the time. Jesus spoke the first words of a worship song that everyone in the crowd, when they heard those words, and they would continue singing that worship song in their head that starts with frustration and angst and my God, why have you forsaken me? But as you get to the end of the triumphant victory at the end of that song, Jesus is hanging there reminding him, you know what, it looks rough. But remember, we get to the end of this song and it's all about the victory. He's hanging there, and those are the things he's saying. He's reminding us as he is suffering. And then the last one before this, he's hanging there and he says, I thirst. It says in our translation, it says wine, but it was actually wine vinegar. So it was literally vinegar. And so they'd offered it to him earlier, but he said no. But then towards the end, Jesus said, I thirst. And we go, okay, well, there he's finally asking for something for himself. I don't care how much you are suffering. No one's going to ask for vinegar to drink, because that doesn't refresh anything. What Jesus said, I thirst, to fulfill the final prophecy of the Messiah that they would offer him vinegar to drink. And so again, he's near death. He's like, here I am. I thirst, give me vinegar. As the reminder to everybody for all time that he is the Messiah, and he ends it all with "it is finished." He's not concerned about himself. It is a masterpiece of love and redemption. What's finished? His absolute masterpiece of love and redemption. What is it? The purpose of God has won. Jesus has conquered sin. He faced it. He bore it for 3 hours. He just took it. Basically saying, Satan, whatever you got, bring it. Come on. Is that all you got? Let's go. Come on. Then when he was done, it is finished. The purpose of God has won. And all that God intended for Jesus to accomplish in his life had been completed. Jesus conquered sin. One down, one to go. Jesus accomplished everything he had meant to accomplish in his life. Now he had one more task. He defeated sin. Now he needed to go and defeat death. And so his last words that he spoke, basically, all right, here we go. Let's roll. One down, death to go. Let's beat that next. See, he just conquered sin. We'd been redeemed. He faced judgment on our behalf. Now we're free to come to God just as we are. Because he defeated sin, God thundered out of the Holy of Holies, and now we have the presence of God in us, around us, and through us at all times. He knew death was next. Sin down, death to go. He was going to face death, and he was going to conquer death. He was going to clear the path for us. See, Jesus conquered sin so we could rise above sin. By living our lives with him, we can rise above sin, and we can go right through it. And he conquered death so that we don't have to face death either. So Luke 23, Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. When he said this, see, Luke added a little something to this as well. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. When he said this, he breathed his last. What is that, into your hands I commit my spirit? You're paying attention to our psalm. It's a prayer from Psalms. When you were little, did you have a bedtime prayer that you prayed? Every night when I was young, I remember, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And somehow, as I got older, I realized we Eliasons, I don't know if it's like the morbid Lutheran version of that prayer, but then when I started talking to friends about, when you're little, you talk to friends, and they're like, some people say, angels watch me through the night till I wake in morning light. No, the Eliason version was, now I lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Like, is that just a Lutheran thing, or... I've always wondered that. I'm like, why do they get the nice version and I get the turn or burn version, But that was my, every night. And I was a weird kid. I'd close my eyes and I'd say my prayer, and I think I've maybe shared this before. I thought if I opened my eyes, I needed to redo my whole prayer routine again. So sometimes if I heard a noise and I opened my eyes, I'm like, okay, here we go. Now I lay me down to sleep and pray, Lord. And I had this whole, God bless mommy, dad, that whole... I was a weird kid. Well, I grew up to be a weird adult. But this Psalm 31, this was the prayer that parents taught their children. It was like their bedtime prayer. It was like their, now I lay me down to sleep. And so before we said, Jesus said the first line of a very famous hymn to get everyone in the crowd to think, okay, it looks rough, but there's victory at the end. This one, he speaks the last line of their bedtime prayer. Psalm 31. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me. Come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you are my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name, lead and guide me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. So as Jesus says, I'm not sure what the order was. Is it finished, or was it into your hands I commit my spirit? Either way, it doesn't matter which one was first. But Jesus said, into your hands I commit my spirit. And everyone in that crowd, does this guy know that? We all know that. See, this is a hymn or a prayer of trust in the midst of deep sorrow, in sleep and in facing death. These are things that we have no control over, and we must trust. I have no control over what happens to me in my sleep. I have no control over deep sorrow. When I'm facing deep sorrow, all I can do is feel and hurt and trust. When we're facing death, I don't necessarily have much control over that. All we can do is trust. And Jesus is reminding us, no matter what, all you need to do is trust. See, he's still teaching us. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. Again, Jesus is teaching us how and when to pray. Always thinking, always teaching, always living an example for us. He's the one suffering, and he's reminding us, even when you're suffering, when things are good, when things are bad, when you have control, when things are out of control, pray. Doesn't matter. Good, bad, ugly, pray. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. This is reminding us, showing us we never have to be afraid. No matter what you're facing, we never have to be afraid. See, Jesus ended his suffering by teaching us how to live each and every day, not in fear, but in confidence and hope. Jesus' final words were a prayer of total submission and complete peace. It is finished. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Complete, total submission, complete, total peace. I feel like there could have been like a thumbs up. Oh yeah, we got this. Because I just think of, I saw a video of a person being carted off. It was like a rugby field or a soccer field or something, And when somebody's being carted off, it could be a gruesome injury, but they you raise a fist or you give the thumbs up as you're going, like, it's all right, I got it. Jesus is up there going, it's all right. We got this. Hold on tight. You're good. It is finished. As he faced death, he expresses his trust that God will care for him. See, we're never too far gone. We are always shown mercy and forgiveness. We are redeemed. Jesus said, it's finished. I deemed you good, and I'm redeeming you good. You're good. Now experience the power of the presence of God in you, around you, and through you. And go and live likewise. So remember, this is the man that dropped 1/10 of a legion of Roman soldiers to one knee. I've said before, one thought, just one thought, he could have wiped out everyone there and taken himself off the cross. But he doesn't think about himself. He thinks about us. He chose that for us. He chose you. He chose me. He chose all of us. So a big question we face is, how do you respond to that kind of love? All the power that created the entire universe, that dropped battle-hardened soldiers with words. All that power, yet all that sacrifice for us. How are we going to deal with that? What are we going to do about that? See, the great thing is he makes himself available to each of us. And that love is ours. The Spirit of God can be present in us. And all we need to say is, Jesus, I give you my life. And that power that tore that really thick curtain, that thundered out of that place, can live within us and grow within us and explode out of us to offer grace, mercy, hope, redemption to everyone within our blast radius. That is my prayer. For me, that is my prayer for us. That there is such a huge blast radius out of this church that people cross the border and they go, whoa, there's something. What is this? I just drove into something. What is this? I feel hopeful. I feel light. I feel joy. I truly believe the power of God exploding from us can radiate and change the world. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you are good. Father, I still get so confused and frustrated with this week. We celebrate you and we praise you in your triumphal entry this week, and then in just a few days we turn on you. And you just took it. But you took it because you love me. You took it because you love every one of us. So I can't even thank you enough. I can't even begin to imagine. If I am confused by it, Father, I can't imagine your emotions this week. And so, Father, I thank you. And I just ask, Father, fill me with you. Jesus, I give you my life. Fill me with your presence. Help me to remain faithful to you. Help me to serve others the way that you serve. Help me to live my life for you and for the sake of others. You are good, and we love you. We thank you for all that you are and all that you are up to in us, around us, and through us. In your holy name, amen. Let's stand.